Hi Doris, thank you again for coming in
Hi,
today.
Karen.
Last week I really enjoyed hearing about your history and your family, and some of the struggles you're going through right now. Today I would love to hear more about your childhood and kind of hear about one or two maybe of your earliest childhood memories. Would you be comfortable sharing that with me?
Yeah, like what, for instance, childhood memories? Just anything?
Just anything that comes to your mind.
Okay, well, hmm. I remember, I don't know why this popped in my mind, but I remember one time my family chose to go to an amusement park one weekend, and I was the youngest, so I just always did whatever. I don't remember having a voice. We're just going to the amusement park, and I remember when we got out in the parking lot that my dad said, gave us this little speech about if you get separated or lost from the group, stay where you are and we'll come back and get you. And never really thinking that would happen. But it was in the afternoon that day, later that day, we were in the park and this parade came through the park, just out of nowhere, just came through the park. And I remember seeing clowns and marching bands and just, it was all very overwhelming for me. I was pretty little. And I remember looking up after this big rush. It didn't last very long, this little short parade, but I remember looking up and then I was separated from the group. And I remember feeling this panicky kind of moment, like I just feeling lost in a crowd. And it's the first time I guess I'd ever really felt lost in the middle of a bunch of people. There was a park bench there, so I just remember sitting on it, and I remembered my dad's word about just wait, we'll come back and get you, and just sitting there. It felt like forever. But eventually, after many strangers coming up to me, which felt just, that just filled me with more anxiety that people were paying attention to me. And I remember trying to look at the ground and not make eye contact, and people were, you sure you don't want us to, take you lost and found? And I'm just like, no, no, no. My dad said stay here. My dad said stay here. I'm not really sure. I think someone probably hung around to make sure I was okay because I was pretty little. But I remember looking up and seeing my dad and the rest of my family walking toward me and just feeling so relieved. And my dad, though, he really complimented me for listening to him and doing what he said. But I remember feeling really proud in that moment, that it was just a neat feeling getting the approval of my parents. Yeah.
So when you were younger, you got lost from your family.
Yes.
And then you obeyed your father, and he praised you when he came back and found you.
Yes. Yes.
I can see how that's like a mixed memory of good and bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have another childhood memory you could share with me?
Yes, I remember another time that I went. My mom and sister were going to town to shop, but I was a little younger than her, and they didn't want me to go, but I wanted to go. I remember I was supposed to stay with my grandmother. But we had a station wagon, and I went and hid in the back. There were like little jump seats, and so I got down under those and I hid, and kind of was a stowaway into town. We lived a few miles out of town, and so they pulled up on the square, and when I was younger, all the stores were around the square, So they parked, and I was going to jump out and say, "Surprise! I'm here anyway," and I lost my nerve. And so they got out, and I stayed hidden away. And then I slowly, it was hot. It wasn't hot like triple digit, but it was hot. But I remember slowly coming out, but just then I got afraid I'm going to be in big trouble for stowing away. And so I was going to just kind of come out, hang out, get back under the seats, and crawl out when I got back, and never let my mom know I had come to town with them. But I remember I wouldn't unlock the doors, roll down the windows, and strangers were trying to get me to open the doors and knocking on the glass, and then I started crying, and according to my mom later, my face was like blood red, from just, and everybody was just like begging me to open a door, crack a window, and I was just, I guess, so much stranger danger, but I would not open anything. And my mom comes back, because they went to a couple of stores, and they came back to the car, and she found me, and she was just devastated. And I just remember them taking me home, immediately home, and putting me in a bath and just, cooling me down. I couldn't have been over maybe 4 years old. I was very little. And I just remember, I remember just being so terrified I would be in trouble that, you know, of course I never did anything like that again. And my mom was shooken up badly. And I felt bad that I caused everybody so much anxiety.
So when you were younger, you stowed away in a car,
Yeah.
Which as a kid, I'm sure that sounded fun.
Yeah. I didn't really think it through.
Right. We all do things like that when we're kids. We don't think through. And then it kind of puts you in a rough situation. And you felt bad because not only were you in a bad situation, but you caused your mother anxiety as well.
Yeah, and I remember feeling very guilty that I had gone against her wishes and caused her all that upset. And yeah, I remember just, you know, feeling very, very, just a horrible guilt complex about doing that I shouldn't have done it, you know.
So looking back on these memories, is there anything, like a common thread maybe you can feel that you experienced when you were a child has been carried over and affects you today as an adult?
Well, I think that my parents were very careful, or tried to be, in raising me and making sure I was safe, and, you know, I guess just like at the amusement park, or, you know, taking care of me after I've been locked up in a hot car. And with my own children, I'm that way. I feel like I'm their protector, especially with their dad gone, that I need to keep them safe. And I think that's, you know, why I'm just very anxious when they're not home by curfew. Really, before curfew, I prefer they're home before, so I can get the house locked up, so I know we're all in and we're safe, and we're all together, and just that feeling of being together and being safe, and you know, and just, you know, thinking about what lurks out there causes me anxiety. And then just, you know, having, you know, we talked about last week about how I just had to go to the doors and lock them over and over and over, to make sure they're locked, make sure the windows are locked, the doors are locked, the alarm's on, it's set, all that stuff. It just, you know, it causes me great anxiety when my children are not home, and when I know we're not locked down tight.
So you mentioned hypervigilance and checking the locks a lot at night. Do you know about how many times you might check the locks in one night?
Well, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but
It's all right.
I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 times.
7 or 8.
I'll get up out of bed and just check again and check again, or recheck windows, recheck front door, back door, check to make sure the alarm code is set. Yeah.
So what would be a goal for you? Of course, the goal is to feel more secure and have less anxiety, but let's work together to set a goal to fix this one problem that you are facing. Would you think maybe if you only checked it maybe 3 times a night, do you think you could feel safe with only checking it 3 times?
I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you understand, I don't literally count, but
Right.
I'm only estimating. I probably do check, but, you know, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, how about for this week, if you like this plan? How do you feel about only checking it 3 times a night, and keeping a tally sheet on your nightstand? And every time you check it, just write down 1 tally, and see if we can keep it limited to 3 times, and maybe work our way down that way. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, it does. I think I can try maybe 4 times.
4 times is good too.
We'll try. We'll try it out. Yeah.
4 times would definitely be progress.
Okay.
So 4 times is good. Let's do 4 times.
Okay.
All right. Time's running out with our meeting. Is there anything else that you have on your mind that you need to share or feel like you need to get off your chest?
Not that comes to mind, but as I said before, I've been journaling, like you suggested, and it seems to help. So before next meeting, I'll read back through my journal, and I'll, if anything, you know, if I see anything that maybe shows a pattern or that keeps resurfacing, then I'll mention it to you, and we'll see how you think that may be affecting my anxiety or my hypervigilance.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it.